brother. Turn the water to wine, had to scale to the top when I was ordered to climb. 2030, Christ coming, but y'all ignoring the signs.
Who is John Mark? Well, how about we start with who he isn't? And before I get into any of that, I want to say no content creators were harmed in the creation of this correction video, all right? Now, who John Mark is not. John Mark is not John the Baptist, nor is he John Zebedee, the brother of James Zebedee. And anybody that's spreading that narrative, spreading that fake news, that false doctrine that John Mark is or was John Zebedee, you're completely incorrect, all right? But let me show you. Matthew chapter 20, and let's start at verse 29. It says, "And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. And behold, two blind men sitting by the wayside, when they heard that Jesus passed by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou son of David. And the multitude rebuked them because they should hold their peace. But they cried the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou son of David. And Jesus stood still and called them and said, What will ye that I shall do unto you? They said unto him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. So Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. And immediately their eyes received sight, and they followed him." So Christ and the disciples were met in the way by two blind men who called out to Christ and acknowledged him as being the son of David. But what does this have to do with anything concerning John Mark? Bear with me now. Let's go to Luke chapter 18, verses 35 through 43. "And it came to pass that as he was come nigh unto Jericho, a certain blind man sat by the wayside begging. And hearing the multitude pass by, he asked what it meant. And they told him that Jesus of Nazareth passed by. And he cried, saying, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And they which went before rebuked him that he should hold his peace. But he cried so much the more, Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood and commanded him to be brought unto him. And when he was come near, he asked him, saying, What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? And he said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Receive thy sight, thy faith hath saved thee. And immediately he received his sight and followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise unto God. So in the accounts of Matthew, there were two blind beggars who received their sight and followed Christ. In the account of Luke, there was one in particular who received his sight and he followed Christ. Stay with me now. Let's go to Mark 10, and I'm going to start at verse 46. "And they came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho with his disciples and a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. And when he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to cry out and say, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And many charged him that he should hold his peace. But he cried the more a great deal, Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood still and commanded him to be called. And they called the blind man, saying unto him, Be of good comfort, rise, he calleth thee. And he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Jesus. And Jesus answered and said unto him, What wilt thou that I should do unto thee? The blind man said unto him, Lord, that I might receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Go thy way, thy faith hath made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way." Now this particular blind beggar cried out to Christ and addressed him as Son of David. He asked him to have mercy on him, and Christ healed him and gave him his sight, and he followed Christ in the way. And we come to know that this particular individual went by the name of Bartimaeus because he was the son of Timaeus. Bar means son, so son of Timaeus. Now, let's go to John chapter 9, where we're going to find out more about who this Bartimaeus is, right? John chapter 9, verse 1. "And as Jesus passed by, he saw a man which was blind from his birth. And his disciples asked him, saying, Master, who did sin, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither have this man sinned nor his parents, but that the works of God should be made manifest in him. I must work the works of him that sent me while it is day. The night cometh when no man can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle and anointed the eyes of the blind man with the clay, and said unto him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is by interpretation sent. He went his way therefore, and washed and came seeing. The neighbors therefore, and they which before had seen him that he was blind, said, Is not this he that sat and begged? Some said, This is he. Others said, He is like him. But he said, I am he. Therefore Said they unto him, How were thine eyes opened? He answered and said, A man that is called Jesus made clay and anointed mine eyes, and said unto me, Go to the pool of Siloam and wash. And I went and washed, and I received sight. Then said they unto him, Where is he? He said, I know not. They brought to the Pharisees him aforetime was blind. And it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. So now we know that this blind beggar that went by the name Bartimaeus was the one that had his eyes opened. Not only that, he had his eyes anointed by Christ. So this was not a regular healing that Christ had performed. Out of all the people that Christ had healed, how many of them do we now know by name? Furthermore, when you read through the rest of the chapter, you come to find out that the Pharisees questioned him and his parents. And when they contended with Bartimaeus, he basically refused to side with the Pharisees in condemning Christ as being a sinner or of the devil, and they cast him out of the synagogue. Verse 35, Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and when he had found him, he said unto him, Dost thou believe on the Son of God? He answered and said, Who is he, Lord, that I might believe on him? And Jesus said unto him, Thou hast both seen him, and it is he that talketh with thee. And he said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. And Jesus said, For judgment I am come into this world, that they which see not might see, and that they which see might be made blind. And some of the Pharisees which were with him heard these words, and said unto him, Are we blind also? Jesus said unto them, If ye were blind, ye should have no sin. But now ye say, We see, therefore your sin remaineth. Okay, so we learned that a blind beggar by the name of Bartimaeus had his eyes anointed and had his sight given back to him. But how does this relate to who John Mark is? Because John Mark is John Zebedee. No, that's wrong. Mark chapter 3, verse 14. And he ordained 12 that they should be with him, and that he might send them forth to preach, and to have power to heal sickness, and to cast out devils. And Simon he surnamed Peter, and James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, this being Zebedee, he surnamed them Boanerges, which is the sons of thunder, and Andrew and Philip and Bartholomew and Matthew and Thomas and James the son of Alphaeus and Thaddeus and Simon the Canaanite and Judas Iscariot, which also betrayed him, and they went into a house. So right here we find out that James and John Zebedee were surnamed Boanerges. They were surnamed the sons of thunder. So they already received their surname. And the reason why they were named the sons of thunder is because John Zebedee and James Zebedee are one of the seven thunders talked about in Revelations chapter 10. They are two of the 12 apostles who are to return in the last day, and they make up one of the churches talked about in Revelations chapter 1. Now, let's get back to talking about John Mark. Let's go to John chapter 19, and we're going to read start at verse 25. Now there stood at the cross by Jesus his mother, and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleophas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus therefore saw his mother and the disciple standing by whom he loved, he saith unto his mother, Woman, behold thy son. Then saith he to the disciple, Behold thy mother. And from that hour that disciple took her unto his own home. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scriptures might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon hyssop and put it in his mouth. When Jesus therefore had received the vinegar, he said, It is finished, and he bowed his head and gave up the ghost. This is the crucifixion of Christ, where he gave his mother over to John Bartimaeus and John Bartimaeus over to his mother, thus adopting Bartimaeus as his brother. Acts chapter 12, verse 11. And when Peter was come to him, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. So John Bartimaeus was no longer known as John Bartimaeus, but John Mark. Bartimaeus' first name was always John. He just received a new surname. An example of this is Simon Peter. Simon was surnamed Peter, but Simon was known as Simon Bar-Jonah. Matthew chapter 16, verse 17. And Jesus answered and said unto him, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. By the mouth of Christ, so shall it be. Simon was asked by Christ who he was, and Simon answered, "You are the Son of the living God." And since Simon was able to see and understand this, this is the reason why Christ said that flesh and blood have not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. Now, if John, who was surnamed Mark, is indeed John Zebedee, why does John 21 say this? After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and on this wise showed he himself. There were together Simon Peter and Thomas called Didymus, and Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee, and two others of his disciples. Simon Peter saith unto them, I go a fishing. They say unto him, We also go with thee. They went forth and entered into a ship immediately, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning was now come, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples knew not that it was Jesus. Then Jesus saith unto them, Children, have ye any meat? They answered him, No. And he said unto them, Cast the net on the right side of the ship, and ye shall find. They cast therefore, and now they were not able to draw it for the multitude of fishes. Therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved saith unto Peter, It is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he girt his fisher's coat unto him, for he was naked, and did cast himself into the sea. So Peter and none of the other disciples were able to recognize that it was Christ. But furthermore, you had both of the Zebedee brothers, James and John, present, as well as John Mark, because John Mark was the disciple whom Jesus loved. He was present, and he was the one who informed Peter that it was Christ. John Bartimaeus Mark is one of the anointed ones and one of the olive branches talked about in Zechariah chapter 4. He is one of the 7 pillars talked about in Proverbs chapter 9. He is one of the 7 stars and the 7 candlesticks and the 7 thunders that is talked about in Revelations chapter 10 and Revelations chapter 1. He is the adopted brother of Christ. He is the disciple whom he loved. John Bartimaeus Mark wrote 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and the books of Revelations. Let's go back to John 21 and pick up on verse 20. Then Peter, turning about, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved following, which also leaned on his breast at supper, and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? Peter, seeing him, saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? Jesus saith unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is it to thee? Follow thou me. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, that the disciple should not die. Yet Jesus said not unto him, He shall not die. But if he will that he tarry till I come, what is it to thee? This is the disciple that testifieth of these things and wrote these things, and we know that his testimony is true. As I stated, John Mark wrote 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and the book of Revelations. Revelations chapter 1 opens up with the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto me to show unto his servant things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel unto his servant John. This John is John Mark, John Bartimaeus Mark, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ in all things that he saw. John Mark, according to Revelations chapter 10 and Revelations chapter 1, is to receive a little book, being the scriptures, from the 7th angel, and he's supposed to prophesy to many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. He's supposed to, this information, all of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that he is going to gain, he's supposed to take that and give it to the people. This 7th angel is also the reincarnation of the Apostle Paul. Apostle Paul is the 7th angel, which is also the first angel in the first church talked about in Revelations chapter 1. I know I'm going deep right now, but guess what? Whoever is going to receive this is going to receive this. Apostle Paul is of the first church. He raises up John Mark. John Mark starts the second church. John Mark prophesies to the people. The other 7 thunders show up. And guess what? The other 7 thunders make up the other 5 churches. There are 2 apostles in the last 5 churches that make up 12 apostles total. So you have Apostle Paul being 1, Apostle John Mark being 2, and then 2 apostles in the remaining 5 churches that would make up the 12 apostles, because the 12 apostles are going to also return. Now, finally, John Bartimaeus Mark. His name means God, or should I say Yahweh, has been or is gracious to the honorable son. Honorable son is Bartimaeus. John is God has been gracious. So John Bartimaeus, Yahweh has been or is gracious to the honorable son, Mark, that listens or pays attention. And what did Christ tell us? If you love me, keep my commands. Who's listening?